Hi, as promised, I'm back with my recommendations. This is in follow up with the last two videos that I made. One being why I'm a reader, and the second, how you can be a reader. And I also wanted to make that entire process, especially for the ones who weren't as motivated as you should have been after watching the last video that I posted, that is, how you can be a reader. My first recommendation, in fact, is my first ever read to completion. I was in such an awe about this book that I wrote an email to my father, a very emotional email, rather, long emotional email, wherein I spoke about how I was in complete awe with this book, the way it taught me how to connect with people, how to be a people person. My true transition from being an introvert to an extrovert actually happened through this book itself. And yes, the book that you see there, this is quite an old book that I started my read with. Has to be this. The book is called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Even though this is very, very old, it's one of the most cherished and priciest book of mine. Mind you, I'm not a physical book reader. I will also make a video on that in terms of why I prefer Kindle or e-readers over books. Probably that'll be the next video of mine. But this book has to be one book that you have to read. As the title goes, it can't get simpler than that. The title is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie being my one true guru. I aspire to be him in terms of its simplicity and the way he writes and the way he connects with you truly on a more simplistically deeper level. That's one book for sure. My second recommendation is a little different from this book, although this book speaks largely about interpersonal communication and how you can become a people person. The next one is from another guru of mine whose name is Napoleon Hill. The book has to be a must read for anybody who remotely wants to understand what success is and how it even happens, because the book is called Think and Grow Rich. Wow, what an amazing read it was. These books are books that I definitely had goosebumps the first time that I read, especially when I processed the way all of these authors thought and taught. It was wow. Learning aspects such as a mastermind group, aspects of law of attraction, fundamentals when it comes to laws of success, which Napoleon Hill had put up in his book. I will put that screenshot of the book cover up there for you. The third recommendation is, I think, effective yet a little complicated. I'm being very straightforward with you, because if you want to start with your reading, I wouldn't want you to start with this book. This book is by Stephen Covey. The book is called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a long, powerful habit building book. My first ever habit building book, rather, because another book I will recommend to you in some time. This book gave me insights about whether it is beginning with an end in mind, whether it is my hues with productivity, especially with think, first things first, think win-win, and so many habits that I processed it earlier, followed it in my life, and also highly recommend it to the others. You should also read this book. Another, which is a very light read, and I can't believe that I would recommend you a book by Chetan Bhagat. Yeah, I know. I'm talking about non-fiction and I'm talking about Chetan Bhagat. For those of you who are starting your read, if you want a very easy read, which yet is important for all of us as Indians, especially, the book is called What Young India Wants. This book personally connected with me largely because of how he puts his views. It's actually a compilation of a lot of his articles that he's written for different newspapers, magazines, and I love the way he compiles it and focuses good chunk of his efforts on the political system, the education system of India, how healthcare is, religion, how it's a dividing factor and why it should not be. I'm sure while you're reading, you're going to smile at a lot of things and go through an introspection of how we, the young, rather, you, the young, need to be a force of change in order for us to make this beautiful country more beautiful. In my recent reads, if there's one book that I've recommended a lot of people off late, it has to be a book which is called Atomic Habits. Oh, if 7 Habits was wow, this is wow in a different way altogether. Because I really, really like the way the book breaks down the power of doing small things regularly in our daily lives. Because the author emphasizes the idea of, in fact, calling the book Atomic Habits is atomic represents those tiny, tiny particles, and that's why tiny habits in your life can make a huge impact. Again, it's a breezer, it's an easy read, easier read compared to the other books. You can pick this book if you want to and read. Another book, because I'm a history buff, I think this is one true recommendation as an Indian to Indians if you are watching this, even Pakistanis if you're watching this, because how sensitive the relationship between both the countries are, India and Pakistan, and how Kashmir being a pot boiler, so many people on both the sides, India and Pakistan, have views, opinions about each other's relationships, especially they have an opinion about Kashmir. Both want, but seldom do people know in details in terms of what happened. And that's the reason why this book that you see up there, it's called The Longest August, is one must read. Because you need to know your history. A lot of it is cluttered, a lot of it is distorted. If you read this book, it kind of clears a lot of myths revolving around India-Pakistan relationship, especially the situation of Kashmir and how we even came to this situation where we are. The motive of the author calling the book Longest August is, he says that the August that started in 1947 has not ended. That's the reason why it's the longest August. I definitely was emotional, angry, upset, sad. I went through a whole host of emotions when I was reading this book. Apart from this, as I said, that the list is exhaustive. I can give you books after books, and hopefully, as I intend to, I want to make book reviews, short book reviews, so that I can read those books that I thoroughly enjoy, reread them, and then kind of summarize them to help you watch that 10-minute video and understand the gist of the book. So instead of recommending more set of books, remember I told you that I usually recommend 3, sometimes 4. The 4th one is again by Dale Carnegie itself. It's another gem which is called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. If any of you have worrying and stress, especially in times like these where mental health has become such an important aspect, you can read this book. It's such an amazing book because it simplifies worrying, stress, and emphasizes a lot more on why we need to live a lot more than worry about how we are going to live. I also have a few authors that I want to recommend. Apart from Dale Carnegie, Stephen Covey, Napoleon Hill, you can pick up books by Brian Tracy. That's another author that I really, really love. If you love some real intellectual read, then Malcolm Gladwell has to be in the list. He is a gem. From his books like Outliers to Bling, Tipping Point, David and Goliath. I've thoroughly enjoyed reading many of his books. I also love Anthony Robbins' books. Again, for those of you who want to do the transition, from fiction to non-fiction, that is, read the story yet learn important principles of life, you can pick up Robin Sharma's books. There are so many, from A Monk Who Sold His Ferrari to Leader Who Had No Title, or there are so many books that he's written. This is where, again, recommending books can be really, really tricky. For example, I can put up 2 books up here. One is by Robin Sharma, which is the 5 a.m. Club. And then there's another book which is The Morning Routine, as you see there. One uses stories to tell you why waking up is important, and the other one goes more direct in terms of why your morning routines are important and why you need to be a morning person. So again, a lot of it depends on what kind of a person you are in terms of your preference when you read. So somebody who's really starting new, I would recommend the 5 a.m. Club. And somebody who wants to know more objectively, straightforward how they can be a morning person, I would recommend the Morning Routine. So that's how reading can vary. So these are all the non-fiction reads. I'm sure this list is incomplete. Obviously it's incomplete because there are so many people who I will be talking about in the near future as well. If I've missed on them, you can definitely add in the comments list and tell others your favorite authors when it comes to non-fiction that others can read as well. And talking about fiction, since I'm not very well aware of the fictional reads, so I'm going to look at my phone, pardon me for that. Many people, when it comes to fiction, think that Chetan Bhagat, it starts with him and it ends with him, but no doubt commercially Chetan Bhagat is popular. But I think apart from Chetan Bhagat, my wife definitely vouches for Ravinder Singh, especially when she's somebody who reads a lot of romantic fiction. She definitely says that people should start their reading with Ravinder Singh and nobody else. And I guess I agree with her. I'm married to her. I have to agree with her. Apart from that, people who love, Amish Tripathi know the kind of books that he writes. Again, bestsellers. Preeti Shenoy is another recommendation that you can. I'm obviously starting with Indian authors because, well, Indian authors are doing a fantastic job both in fiction and non-fiction. Especially in fiction, I think they're doing a tremendous job, engaging us, Indianizing those stories more, which we can correlate to. If I have to look at international authors, a lot of you, of course, will vouch for Dan Brown, Stephen King. People who love romantic stuff will definitely love John Green, Cecilia Ahern. Then my wife also vouches and says that people should read this author as well, whose name is Haruki Murakami. Pardon me for that, it's a Japanese name, so I have to get that right. I've also heard a lot of people speak about Khalid Hosseini for the kind of books that he writes. So, well, you have a huge list, because even though I gave you few authors, mind you, these authors have written multiple gems, many books to your reference list that you can go and look at. And I would strongly recommend you to start with one at least, and then go on with many other. And if none of what I said matters to you, like how I said in my previous video, just walk up to a bookstore, pick up random books, both in fiction and non-fiction, go to the end, the back of the book, and read the gist about what the book is. And if it excites you, pick up that book and go and start reading. And if that also is too difficult for you, probably pick your phone, download a Kindle app, subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, which has a whole host of books that you have at your disposal. Just pick one and get started. Remember, the bottom line is about just getting your reading process started. You start with any of my recommendations or your friends or anybody else's. And yes, my friends and viewers who are watching this video, if I've missed out on any names, both fiction and non-fiction, I would definitely want you to add to the list, to my list, and help our viewers in terms of what they should be reading to begin with. Happy reading and have a great life. See you. Bye-bye.